to me, the question is not can they win 3 playoff games first. The question is, can they just finish off this division? And that's a question at this point, right? I don't know. I don't know. I think sometimes, the backup quarterback comes in, he plays the way he played. What happens when now they are game planning for you? Now they are prepared for you. I think sometimes it's like, sometimes people feel like you haven't played golf, picked up a club in 3 months. You're better that first time around than when you start playing 3 days a week. You start going the wrong direction. I think sometimes that can happen with backup quarterbacks. Like in this moment, on this day, we just played playground football. We schemed it up. It worked. What happens when the Bucs have a week? What happens when the football team has a week? What happens when the Seahawks have a week to prepare for you? That's
good thing the Bucs are going to have before they have to travel 5 days. Seahawks 4.
Right. Yeah, that helps.
Bucs true. Play tomorrow Monday night, and Seattle's a short week. So if you somehow you can fucking take advantage of this next 14 days, 11-day stretch, if you could sweep these next 2 games, you'd be in the playoffs and basically be the division winner. But that you're right. I mean, the Bucs game. One thing on the backup quarterback and just Purdy or just any guy, but I think specifically with the Niners, you could tell him and Ayuk like work on some of those passes. Like Ayuk was open. I mean, just airmailing it. Just get a chance to throw to him all week long.
Yeah,
he has not been taking. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo's probably taken every first team rep for 3 straight months once Trey got hurt.
Yeah.
So there is an element of like this guy is on the other side of the field pretending to be Tua, and now he gets to play with. One thing that made today somewhat easier for him is I would say Debo's a pretty easy player to play with, right? You relatively short routes, and McCaffrey, everything's a dump off to him. So that's a great guy to play with. And Kyle likes to run the ball, and most of his passes, the majority of his passes are going to be around the line of scrimmage. So it was an easier transition than some offenses. But I do think he'll benefit from that too. I mean, it's just the crazy part about the NFL when you do have what made the Niners situation unique is they had 2 options, right? They had the number 3 pick in the draft, and then they had Jimmy Garoppolo, but somehow they're already on their 3rd option. I can't wrap my head around that. Again, I do think the information, like it's just unprecedented. It happened 1 year to the Panthers. When Carson Palmer, or not the Panthers, to the Cardinals, and I think the Cardinals played the Panthers in the first round. Carson Palmer tore his ACL.
Michigan State guy?
I think Lindley, the San Diego State guy,
ended
up playing. Yeah. They had a backup quarterback who also got injured, and they played with like their practice squad guy.
I guess, did it happen to the Raiders? The year they made the playoffs? When Derek got hurt, and then...
No, because he got benched, remember?
Who?
McGloin
got benched, not hurt, and they went to...
I thought McGloin was so terrible in that Denver game, they just went with Connor Cook in the playoff game, if I remember correctly.
Kind of insane. Niners play Bucs, Seahawks, Commanders, Raiders, Cardinals. So that's their next 5. Obviously, Purdy's got to get through that too, but they got to get through that with him. And I think
today was massive. I mean, when you factor in just the number game, right? To figure out a way to win that game.
Yeah.
When it was 23-17 and they had the ball and driving, you're like, I'm a mathematician here. Are they gonna win the game 24-23?
Well, the recipe for them is like the final score, like you said, does not represent. The recipe for them is that's what's a little crazy because Garoppolo had been the best version of Jimmy, right? Especially over the course of their last 4 games. He'd been the best version of himself, wasn't throwing picks. I guess the one pick he threw got called back. And the recipe for the Niners is kind of the same still moving forward. Defense, run the ball, short passing, and don't make mistakes and hope that field goals, because today was no different than other days where they just don't score touchdowns in the red zone. They're 50. I mean,
well, until Purdy came in and he dumped off to a CMC, baby.
Yeah, but then they got 2 turnovers and 2 field goals.
I know.
So their recipe, that's what's crazy about Garoppolo. And the way it looks now with Purdy is like you said, you go, well, your chances, it gets a lot harder. But the recipe hasn't actually changed at all for them in terms of what a win looks like, right?
Yeah.
A win still looks like Bosa going crazy, Debo going crazy, a couple of key throws, Robbie Gould hitting a 50-yarder, and your defense making some plays. And the other team kind of needs to make a few mistakes.
Who scored? What was the final score?
33-17.
Oh yeah, Greenlaw scored that. I was like, well, who's the offense? It was Greenlaw.
Yeah. So I guess if you wanted to go glass half full on it for the big picture, you'd say, well, they're used to playing the type of game that they have to play, as opposed to like, Mahomes goes out and now Chad Henne's the quarterback or whoever their backup.
They're not a top 5. Like if Tua were, they're not a top 5 offense. You're removing in terms of scoring prowess, right? That's not the way they're built. I mean, ideally, one thing you're seeing though, from in a vacuum with their offense, is teams are selling out to stop the run against them, selling out. And it's like, Kyle, I don't think, even though they end up throwing the ball a lot, the other team is somewhat dictating them into positions that they clearly don't want to get into, because it's really, really hard to bust a 6-yard run on first down, because there are fucking white jerseys everywhere. No different than the Saints. I don't even remember who they played last week, but every team they play these last 2 or 3 weeks has been selling out to stop the run.
Yeah.
And then finally, I will give Kyle some credit throughout the game once they were blitzing everyone. Get the little guy on the move. Get the little guy on the move. And they got him on the move a couple times. Like, I would get him on the move. He feels comfortable doing that. I mean, I would say if they were to win a playoff game with Brock Purdy, it would be one of Kyle's greatest triumphs. This is football. Yeah. You don't win playoff games with backup quarterbacks. I mean, that's a fact. It's just, look at the league, look at the history of the league. It just doesn't really happen. So Kyle got a lot of credit for 2 road wins.
This is why you got to win the division, because you might end up playing the Giants or the Seahawks, or God only knows who you're playing in the first round at this point, right?
Yeah, but again, like, and the Niners aren't built this way, but like Geno Smith is a better player than Brock Purdy. Like, the Niners would rather have, if I told you, they would take Geno Smith right now over Brock
without
Purdy.
question.
Yeah, so it's
There's no doubt about it. But I think what you just said kind of just crystallizes how critical it is to win the division and have a home playoff game this year.
Yeah,
it just got more important,
especially with Seattle coming back and winning that game.
Especially with Seattle coming back,
drove down the field and won that game.
3 to the Rams. Geno,
DK?
drove down the field and DK. Geno was fucking spinning it today.
Geno throws a great ball.
He really does. Brock